Hi, we are from Group 3 of the 2021 Macroeconomic class. In this video, we will explain about what is open economy and how it can affect economic growth.
In our daily lives, we are surrounded by many items, such as clothes, furniture, gadgets, and many more. Which country were those items made in? Your food may be from the local farm, but your phone could be from overseas, also your furniture. This is the result of international trading. What is international trading then? It is the exchange of goods and services between countries. There are two concepts that exist in international trade: comparative advantage and absolute advantage. Comparative advantage occurs when an economy's ability to produce a particular good or service has a lower opportunity cost than its trading partners. What is the opportunity cost? It is the potential benefit you would miss out on if you choose an option over the other. For example, Country A has a comparative advantage over Country B on product C if Country A uses less resources to create the same amount of product C as Country B. It means Country A has more resources to spare to create other products. A country knowing its and other countries' comparative advantage will lead to specialization in international trade. Specialization is the act of focusing resources on creating products from a specific industry instead of spreading the resources to various industries. The goal of specialization is to use resources more efficiently. Countries with different industries they specialize in can trade to efficiently fulfill each other's needs. On the other hand, absolute advantage occurs when an economy can create a product at a higher quality and a faster rate for a greater profit than another competing business or country, regardless of the opportunity cost. It is important for a country to know its absolute advantage. A country should focus its resources on the product that has absolute advantage to acquire the most profit. International trade exposes consumers to more choices of products and services which may allow more people to have their specific needs fulfilled. For example, a patient needs to be treated for a very rare disease, so they need to go to a country with advanced medical practices. Those are some advantages of international trading. Then are there any disadvantages of it? International trading may block the growth of a new domestic industry. With various products in the market, it is difficult for a new business to compete and develop. Hence, protection exists. Protection refers to policies created by the local government to limit imports or promote exports to maintain the growth of the local industries. There are three primary protection policies. Tariffs in the form of import tax, to make imported goods less competitive. Subsidies to local industries, which results in lowering the price of goods, which makes it more competitive. Limit quotas on imported goods, because no matter how low the prices of imported items are, as long as the amount is limited, then money will still flow to local industries. Another method that is rarely mentioned is currency manipulation, because its effects are subtle. A country will deliberately lower its currency value, thus allowing its exports to be cheaper and more competitive.
In the previous illustration, we only considered international trade with protection policies. Then how about international trade without protection policies or rules? Open economy is a type of economy where there exist no boundaries for international trade, where goods, services, and also financial assets are traded with other countries without rules or limits. In the open economy, we can summarize the desirable economic goals as being the attainment of internal and external balance. Internal balance means a steady growth of the domestic economy consistent with a low unemployment rate, while the external balance is the achievement of a desired trade balance or desired international capital flows. Unlike in the closed economy, in the open economy, we must distinguish between the domestic demand for goods and the demand for domestic goods. Some domestic demand falls on foreign goods, and some of the demand for domestic goods comes from foreigners. In an open economy, the demand for domestic goods, and in turn output, depends both on the interest rate and on the exchange rate. An exchange rate is a rate of one nation's currency exchange for the currency of another nation or economic zone. Exchange rate can be either fixed or floating. Fixed exchange rates are decided by central banks of a country, example, Bank Indonesia in Indonesia, whereas floating exchange rates are decided by mechanism of market demand and supply. Exchange rate is determined by the interest parity condition, which states that domestic and foreign bonds must have the same expected rate of return in terms of domestic currency. An appreciation of the domestic currency is an increase in the price of the domestic currency in terms of a foreign currency. In other words, an appreciation corresponds to an increase in the exchange rate. An increase in the interest rate decreases the demand for domestic goods. An increase in the exchange rate also decreases the demand for domestic goods. Decrease in domestic interest rate leads to a decrease in the exchange rate. In general, an issue that faced by an open economy will be one of these following problems. 1. The economy faces unemployment problems, but there is a surplus in the balance of payment. 2. The economy faces inflation problems, but there is a surplus in the balance of payment. 3. The economy faces unemployment problems and there is a deficit in the balance of payment. 4. The economy faces inflation problems and there is a deficit in the balance of payment. Unemployment and inflation's problems that followed by a deficit in the payment balance require a special treatment and policy from the government, such as 1. Spending shift policy. This policy aims to overcome the unemployment problem and deficit in the balance of payment by increasing exports and reducing imports. Steps that will increase exports include: provide fiscal and monetary incentives to increase activity in the production of export goods, create stability between employee salaries and the price of goods, and reduce currency value. Meanwhile, steps that will reduce import include: impose import restrictions, reduce the use of foreign exchange, and decrease the value of the currency. 2. Spending reduction policy. This policy aims to overcome the inflation problem and deficit in the balance of payment by reducing imports. Steps that must be taken to implement this policy are: increase income tax, reduce the government expense, increase interest rate and decrease money supply.
In long terms, unemployment and inflation's problems also can hamper economic growth of a country. What is economic growth and how can it be achieved? Economic growth is an increase in the production of economic goods and services, compared from one period of time to another. It can be measured in nominal or real. Traditionally, aggregate economic growth is measured in terms of gross national product, GNP, or gross domestic product, GDP. Economic growth has a different meaning from economic development. Economic growth is an increase in GDP or real GNP. Meanwhile, economic development is economic growth followed by changes in other aspects of the economy such as the development of education, development of skills, labor, technological improvements, and increases in the level of community prosperity. Economic development only applies if per capita income has increased continuously. The level of economic development and the level of community prosperity achieved are usually measured by nominal per capita income data, which is calculated by the formula. There are several factors that affect the economic growth. 1. Human resources. 2. Capital formation. 3. Technological development. 4. Natural resources, and 5. Social and political factors. Human resource. The quality of human resources is dependent on its skills, creative abilities, training, and education. The human resources of a country should be adequate in number with required skills and abilities, so that economic growth can be achieved. Capital formation involves land, building, machinery, power, transportation, and medium of communication. Producing and acquiring all these man-made products is termed as capital formation. Capital formation increases the availability of capital per worker, which further increases capital or labor ratio. Consequently, the productivity of labor increases, which ultimately results in the increase in output and growth of the economy. Technological development. Technological development helps in increasing productivity with the limited amount of resources. Countries that have worked in the field of technological development grow rapidly as compared to countries that have less focus on technological development. The selection of the right technology also plays a role for the growth of an economy, and inappropriate technology will result in a high cost of production. Natural resources. Countries having plenty of natural resources enjoy better growth than countries with small amounts of natural resources. The efficient utilization or exploitation of natural resources depends on the skills and abilities of human resource, technology used and availability of funds. A country having a skilled and educated workforce with rich natural resources takes the economy on the growth path. Political factors. Political factors, such as participation of the government in formulating and implementing various policies, have a major part in economic growth. Social factors. A society with conventional beliefs and superstitions resists the adoption of modern ways of living. In such a case, achieving economic growth becomes difficult. Some economists have different beliefs in which is the most important factor that affect the economic growth. 1. Classical theory. 2. Schumpeter's theory. 3. Herod de Mar theory. 4. Neoclassical theory. Classical theory. Classical economists paid particular attention to the role of labor. According to them, excessive labor will affect economic growth. Schumpeter's theory emphasizes the role of entrepreneurs who will innovate and invest to realize economic growth. Herod de Mar theory shows the role of investment as a factor that causes an increase in aggregate expenditure. This theory basically emphasizes the role of the demand side in realizing growth. Neoclassical theory. Through an empirical study of this theory, it shows that technological developments and improving people's skills are the most important factors in realizing economic growth.
Open economy has a good intention, which is to achieve internal and external balance. On the other hand, if not implemented efficiently, it can evoke unemployment and inflation's problems, which can retard economic growth. Therefore, we need a collaboration between economic agents and government to achieve an efficient condition in which economic growth is achieved. Thank you for watching and goodbye.